In a world where kingdoms fall and stars still remember names, this song was forged from magic memory and the dream that refused to die. Welcome to a tale where wonder still breathes. This is the story entitled We Wrote Our Vows on Napkins, a late night love story of Forever for Wheein created by Pacampara. If this tale stirred something in you, a memory, a dream, or a truth, our Ko-fi, Amazon, and Patreon links are in the description. Support helps us keep writing for you and the ones you hold dear. Every city had its hidden shrine, and for us it was the cafe on the corner, the one with rain-streaked windows and a neon sign that flickered like a tired heartbeat. We returned there again and again, not just for the coffee, but for the walls covered layered in ink and faded scribbles. The plaster became a constellation of promises, jokes, confessions, and tiny pieces of eternity. Each time we walked in, Jess with his quiet resolve, Wheein with her laughter tucked into her sleeve, Young with her glow that made the room feel brighter, Buell with her mischievous grin, and Pen always ready. We sought out a fresh corner of the wall, and every time we left something behind. A line of love, a vow disguised as a joke, a fragment of song lyrics only we would recognize. Soon the cafe carried us in its skin, our words etched among strangers' declarations. It felt like planting a secret garden in the bricks of a city, a place only we could trace back with every visit. The ritual deepened, laughter spilling, ink smudging, hands brushing as we leaned close to write. And maybe someday the paint would feel, or new owners would cover the walls. But whereas the act itself mattered more than the permanence, because each stroke of pen against plaster said the same thing: we were here together and always. The rain had started before sunset, then steady and then merciless, until the streets swam with the reflections of neon and headlight glare. Jess pulled his hood low, but even through the curtain of water, he spotted Wheein, standing just beneath the cafe's buzzing sign. The pink glow of open 24 hours sputtered above her, bleeding into the puddles at her feet until it looked like though she were floating on watercolor. She was hugging herself, shoulders hunched against the chill, but when she saw him approach, she lifted her chin with the smallest, bravest smile. "You're late," she said, her voice more tired than accusing. Jess shrugged off his jacket before answering, draping it over her without a word. She caught the collar and pulling it tight around her frame, sleeves drowning her hands. "You'll freeze," she muttered. "Better me than you," Jess said. And for a moment, he just looked at her, the way rain traced down her hairline, the faint smudge of mascara beneath her eyes, and the quiet defiance of someone who had been given too much all day and finally wanted to stop something inside him ache. And so, they stepped inside together. The cafe breathed warm, like a living thing, full of scents that clung to memory, the roasted beans, the sweet vanilla, the sharp curl of cinnamon from a forgotten scone. The floorboards creaked as if it remembered every weary foot that had crossed them. An espresso machine hissed, then sighed, filling the air with white noise. A young couple whispered at the far end, their laughter muffled by porcelain cups clinking gently against saucers. The barista with a half bun of hair slipping loose, doodled flowers into her order pad as though time had slowed down. Jess and Wheein claimed the usual booth near the fogged-up window. Outside, the world blurred and dreamlike. Car lights blending into the long ribbons, the city smudged into watercolor by the rain. Wheein wrapped both hands around her latte, though as she didn't drink, she looked small behind the rising steam, and the expression caught between weary composure and something more fragile. Jess leaned forward, elbows against the worn wood of the table. "Rough day?" he asked softly. She let out a sigh that seemed to empty her chest. "They want me to shine on command. Smile, laugh, be their spark. Every hour of day. But what if I don't want to?" Her eyes flickered, glassy in the dim light. "What if I just want silence? What if I don't want to sparkle at all?" Jess didn't answer immediately. Instead, he let her words breathe between them, the way one gives space to a trembling bird. He thought of other nights, when Wheein doubled over in laughter at the arcade, tears streaming down her cheeks as she tried and failed to beat him at a rhythm game. Her voice rising clear and fearless during a rehearsal hall years ago, when she sang not to impress anyone but simply because the melody had to be freed, and that summer evening on the beach when she chased the tide barefoot, humming off-key, hair tangled with salt, looking like the ocean's favorite child. And now across from him, that same girl seemed tired of carrying everyone else's light. "Do you think," Jess began, his voice tentative, "that the promises are the only things keeping us from unraveling? Like even if everything else falls apart, words can still hold us together?" Wheein tilted her head, eyes narrowing in curiosity, as if testing the weight of what he said. Then slowly, she pushed a napkin toward him. "Then write me one." He blinked. "Here? Now?" "Why not?" she said, her lips tugging into a half smile that carried more plea than a challenge. "If words can hold us, then let me see yours." Jess then dug for his pen, the ink nearly out, and pressed it against the fragile skin of the napkin. His hand trembled slightly, not from doubt, but from the enormity of writing something he wanted to mean forever. The words bled across the fibers. "I'll always be there for you." He slid it back toward her, his chest strangely tight. Wheein stared at the vow as though afraid it might vanish. If she blinked too hard, her fingertip traced the letter slowly and carefully. Then she grabbed her own napkin, scribbling fast. In her whirlwind scroll, she pushed it across the table with a smirk that only half disguised the shimmer in her eyes. "Don't forget to laugh with me, even if the world is cruel." Jess smiled as he read it, folding the napkin as if it were sacred. He slipped it into his wallet between an old receipt and faded the photograph, like something meant to be carried until it turned to dust. Wheein, watching him, arched in her eyebrow. "Your handwriting's awful, by the way. Looks like the pen was drunk." "Drunk on love," Jess deadpanned, and for the first time that evening she laughed, burst out of her, and startled and unguarded, chasing the shadows from her eyes. "Corny," she said, rolling her eyes, but her voice softened as she added, "Please don't stop." The cafe then seemed to exhale with them, the lights warmer, the radio easing into another verse. Jess hummed along absent-mindedly, catching a thread of melody. "If I could make days last forever." Wheein rested on her chin, on her hand, watching him as if the sound of his voice was the only fruit she needed at that time. The world hadn't completely hardened. By the time they stepped back outside, the storm had softened into a mist. Jess popped open his umbrella and held it low, letting Wheein nestle close against his side. The street smelled of wet pavement and blooming night jasmine, puddles mirroring the restless shimmer of neon signs. She began to hum as they walked, soft, uncertain at first, then steady, weaving into the rhythm of their footsteps. The melody was familiar, maybe a fragment of a song she once sang, carefree. Maybe something new, and Jess listened, his shoulder brushing hers beneath the umbrella, and thought her voice was the most enduring vowful. They passed shuttered bookstores, a street musician packing up his guitar, a lamppost dripping rain like silver threads. The city felt hushed, reverent, as though it too were holding their promises in its quiet hands. Jess glanced down at Wheein, her hair damp, her lips curved faintly as she hummed. He thought of the napkin folded in his wallet, of the way her laughter had come back to him in that cafe, raw and real. And he thought with the weight of something eternal, that this is how forever begins, not with the grandeur or ceremony, but with vows scrawled on napkins, laughter proclaimed from shadows, and two people walking home beneath one small umbrella as the night leaned close to listen. And then years later, the napkins were still there, in Jess's wallet, frayed at the corners, carried one folded square like a pressed flower, the ink faint but unbroken. In another corner of the house, Wheein kept hers tucked in a sketchbook, between the doodles of moons and wildflowers. They never spoke of it often, not because it was forgotten, but because some promises hum better in silence. On a spring evening, long after storms had passed, Jess found himself seated at a wooden table again, this time with all three of them, Young leaning into his shoulder, her laughter spilling like sunlight through the window, Bill sketching lazy stars on a napkin of her own, her grin tilted mischievously, Wheein humming under her breath, tracing circles on her cup the way she always did when she was content. The cafe was different now, brighter, filled with chatter and music, but the four of them carried a hush between them, as if the world paused to listen. "Do you still have it?" Wheein asked suddenly, her voice soft but steady. Jess slid his wallet from across the table, opening it just enough for them to glimpse the fragile square of paper inside. The ink had bled with age, but the words were still legible. "I'll always be there for you." Young touched it gently, her eyes warm, and whispered, "You already are." Bill leaned in, snatching a napkin from the dispenser, her pen scratching with a playful ferocity. "It's my turn," she declared, and wrote, "Even if the stars burn out, I light the way with laughter." And she slid it across with a wink. Young followed, her handwriting precise and elegant. "In every life I will find you again." Just folded their vows into his wallet too, tucking them alongside Wheein's as though collecting constellations. But the napkins crinkled, imperfect and fragile, but each carried a piece of forever. And then outside, twilight bent into the night, and when they finally stepped out together, one umbrella was enough, so they let the rain kiss their hair, their coats, their cheeks. Wheein began to hum, Young joined with the harmonies, and Bill drummed their fingers against her side like a rhythm section, and Jess laughed, the sound weaving through their song. It wasn't ceremony, it wasn't grandeur, it was simply four souls bound by vows, scribbled in ink and laughter, promising one another again and again that eternity was not something to wait for. It was here now, in the rain and in the music, in the warmth of their joined hands. And the napkins, they were never just paper, they were the proof. I create these stories, poems and little worlds each day for my beloved Wheein. If they bring you comfort or a smile too, please give it a like, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe to join us on this little journey.